Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about Marvel comic books and how they're getting even more woke and pro-SJW once again. Previously, we've extensively talked about the new upcoming Marvel film releases and how they've been getting more and more female-led and politically motivated too. And well, this trend actually comes from the comic books themselves as well. As the Marvel movies slowly turn more and more left-wing, the comic books and their writers have led this charge behind the scenes, and their sales have suffered because of it too. But woke Marvel comic book workers and writers have a unique advantage right now. They actually don't need to make money, since not only did Disney buy them out, but also the Marvel movies make more than enough to support the whole company overall. This sort of free reign has also allowed the pro-SJW staff in comics to turn away from selling their works for profit, which means they don't have to give the people what they want anymore, at least somewhat. Now that the left-wingers controlling Marvel Comics have free reign, they've basically given up on trying to sell their work. Now they just want to push their liberal agendas no matter what, and they want to lady reboot and race swap every original character that they can, corrupting our comic book history. Previously, we've seen glimpses of this begin to come out in films too, as with the Captain Marvel movie release that was an adaptation of the Carol Danvers version of the character, who was actually a lady reboot of sorts of the original straight white male version of Captain Marvel. There's also a Miss Marvel show that's on its way to Disney Plus now too, and even another She-Hulk series as well. Yes, lady reboots and gender swapping characters are getting real common now, despite not being that popular or well liked or received by the public at all. That brings us to today's news story. Back to the comics, and we can see that there's now an all-female villain team, and you'll never believe what they're taking aim at in their new issues. An article from CBR.com has more details. It's called "Marvel's All-Female Villain Team Takes Aim at Toxic Masculinity." Wow, what a title. And from this picture already, I could see at least two of the team members are just female versions of other more popular male villains. Clearly, the one on the left is a lady version of Dr. Octopus, and the one on the right is a femme Electro. We'll see what the others end up being, but this is not a good start at all. SJWs have never been good at writing or coming up with new ideas, so it's not surprising that a good amount of their female villain team is just knockoff female versions of popular male villains. And back to this title again, and this all-female villain team is taking aim at toxic masculinity, so does that make toxic masculinity the good guy then? Wouldn't they be the heroes since they're going up against villains? I would certainly think so, but I also wouldn't use a term like toxic masculinity in a serious way whatsoever. Really, toxic masculinity is just a way for liberals to bash men and to call us toxic or evil or something like that. We're not though, and we're not hurtful or toxic. Toxic is just a buzzword itself, and we better see some pretty good examples in this article to uphold this bullshit of a claim that I think will fall down like a house of cards. Marvel's The Amazing Spider-Man is changing the dynamic of Peter Parker's social circle in a huge way, as he's been forced to defend his roommate Boomerang from the new incarnation of the Syndicate, an all-female crew sent by Wilson Fisk to kidnap him. But while the latest chapter sees the team pursuing Boomerang to undoubtedly score a major payday, we eventually discover a common ambition the members share. They want to bring down the patriarchy and, more so, take a shot against toxic masculinity in a New York that they believe should have more women in power. Well, if you really want more women in power, there's a normal, legal way you can get that done, ladies. Create viable female candidates, promote them during elections, and get the people to vote for women. Or if it's business and financial power you're after, you can always start your own business and make some money and build a successful company. At least that's how it's supposed to be done. That's how the men who got into power got it done too, by the way. But the SJWs clearly don't want to play fair here, nor do they want to put in the hard work or effort. That's why they write comics like this, where they fantasize about all-female groups of villains, a group of superpowered women who are going to go around New York and attack men who really did nothing wrong. Now, we already went over how toxic masculinity is bullshit. It's just a way for lefties to bash men because they prefer women and LGBT people over all others. But next, let's talk about the patriarchy bullshit. This implies that men have all the power in our country, and they also got it in unfair, possibly illegal ways. But this is not true here at all. The men in power here earn their positions by either winning votes in elections or building companies and industries and amassing wealth and influence over time. So to take away power from these people who got it for themselves in fair and square ways, well, that suggestion is actually what's offensive here. Not only are they suggesting we strip people of their own assets and positions in companies they own and or founded, but also they want to replace duly elected government officials who won their political offices by getting votes from the people. So with that said, the left is essentially saying they know better than all of us, and they have a right to take away money and assets from people if they don't like your demographic. And even worse, they think they can take politicians out of power even though they are the ones who the citizens voted for. basically saying our votes don't count according to SJWs. And the worst part is, these lefties think they can do this to men because we are men, and they don't even see how anti-male and biased and bigoted and sexist that actually is. If we went the other way around and wanted to take jobs and offices away from women because they're women, surely that would be called sexist and wrong, because it is. But for some reason, call it bigotry or bias, well, liberals think they can attack and disenfranchise men simply because they don't like us and they think that it's okay then. And being sexist is also okay when they do it, and that's absolutely absurd. When the women attack Boomerang at the Feast Center, Peter hides Aunt May away and returns, costumed for a team-up he doesn't want. He knows Boomerang ran afoul of the Syndicate, but isn't sure why. Electro and Beetle have valid reasons, as Boomerang betrayed them to save his own hide, and others, apart from Trapster, who's only there for the violence, bring to light a disturbing history with Boomerang from the bar with no name. While he's now on the straight and narrow, flashbacks show Boomerang obnoxiously hitting on Lady Octopus, Carolyn Trainer, who was briefly Dr. Octopus in the 1990s, Scorpia, Elena Cole, a new Scorpion given powers by the crime boss Silvermane, and White Rabbit, Dr. Lorena Dodson, an Alice in Wonderland themed villain. The women are rightfully annoyed, and as their vendetta comes to light, it turns out Boomerang might have crossed some lines with his forward behavior and frat boy mentality. When he tries to mansplain how to conduct a heist at Feast, it only further angers the women. So first we got SJWs complaining about men hitting on women, something they would also complain about if they didn't get hit on as well, keep in mind. These same leftist women who complain when guys hit on them or flirt, they will also end up missing that attention when it's gone. So enjoy it while it lasts, ladies. You're only a few years away from hitting the wall too, so lock down a good man while you still can. Also, you can see from this comic panel that's used as an example that the Boomerang character wasn't even hitting on them in gross or offensive ways at all. All he says is, hey, nice costume. But that's all it takes to trigger a leftist woman in current year, I guess. Next, after going over some more of the female villains, another of which is yet another gender swap of a more popular male villain, well, after that, they accuse the man of mansplaining when he simply suggests a way to conduct their upcoming heist mission. Mansplaining is yet another SJW buzzword here. That's also just another way to bash men. They don't like men, so when we talk or explain things, they call that mansplaining. And the left thinks labeling it that means they can write off all the things we say. When we find this new syndicate views the New York City crime scene as biased, Alistair Smythe tried to belittle Lady Octopus over her own work. Rhino doesn't treat Scorpion equally, and White Rabbit admits Hawkeye makes passes at her in battle, which she finds offensive. Nonetheless, while they make their own #MeToo list after knocking out Spider-Man and snatching Boomerang, they still owe a major part of their business to Fisk. It remains to be seen how their partnership will evolve, but for now, he'll definitely be impressed by how they took out the wall crawler and apprehended someone he's been hunting for a long time. Okay, not cool. Spider-Man finally gets taken out, and it's done by an all-female villain group full of SJW ladies, and half of them are just uninspired lady reboots of popular male villains. What a goddamn joke. And what an embarrassment to the Spider-Man series. I had heard this comic had fallen off a bit too, but I never expected to see it go this far and this bad, using every anti-male buzzword there is here, like toxic masculinity, patriarchy, mansplaining, and now they're going to try and Me Too every single male character they can. When does this madness end? And can they even get more disrespectful to the series and its original creators? This has got to be one of the dumbest and most SJW corrupt comics I've ever seen in my life. And talk about being tone deaf here too, and out of touch from society. Only the most radical of feminists and SJWs would go along with this kind of thing and think it's okay. These days, even the most moderate and uninformed normies out there, they still know that men aren't actually evil, and saying we mansplain when we talk is rather ridiculous and borderline offensive. Also, most people understand what flirting is, and that guys are allowed to talk to women in public. And that's not automatically some kind of Me Too violation, especially when the guy just says, hey, nice costume. Come on, flirting is okay, and most women think it's okay and even complimentary at times. Only old, gross SJW hags actually complain about this kind of shit, probably because the only people who flirt with them are unskilled, ugly asshole dudes. And this makes the SJWs think that every man is like that, I suppose, but really, we're not. They just only see shitty and ugly men hitting on them because they're terrible people who no one wants to be around. And the next part here is the kicker, and this is something I've noticed about lots of women too. When a good-looking guy or a rich and desirable one talks to a lady, they are totally fine with it and happy to be spoken to. But when it's an ugly loser type guy who tries to flirt, girls will often lash out at them, even saying they're horrible, offensive creepers, despite them possibly saying the exact same things the good-looking guy did. Basically, if you're good-looking and you flirt with a girl, that's called charming and sweet. But if you're ugly or poor, you're a sexist and a woman-hating creeper. But I just don't buy that. In the end, this is yet another Marvel comic book that's going off the rails with with its pro-feminist SJW messages. Not only are they recycling and reusing long-debunked terminology and concepts, but they're also being highly disrespectful to men in the process. Funny how their way of making things fair and balanced, in their words, is to just flip around and shit on men. Really goes to show that this isn't about equality or fairness at all. And this also goes to show how far left-wing and pro-progressive Marvel comic books and its universe has become. And the comic books leading the charge here is what's also making the Marvel movies and upcoming TV shows become more woke as well. What do you guys think? Do you think this all-female villain team was a good idea? Kind of dumb to try this after so many other all-female lady reboot projects have failed. And what do you think about toxic masculinity and the patriarch? Do they really exist? Are these real issues to be worried about in current year? Because I think if males were so toxic and so controlling of this country, we probably wouldn't allow women to band together and talk shit and lie about us like this. Like what's happening with today's story. Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see y'all next time.